I'm Janelle from Emmaline Bags, and today I'm going to show you our new fusible interfacing. These are cotton interfacings, and you can find them on the website under EB-FUSE. EB-FUSE light, medium, and heavy. So we go through the different weights on the website, but I'm just going to show you how easy it is to fuse them and where and when you'll want to use them. When you're on the website, you will also find our sample swatches. These are free and you can add them to cart, and they're found in the EB-FUSE product. So you can just go up to the search bar and search EB-FUSE, or go into the interfacing collection and find that there. So they're all woven white cottons with a glue backing. The light and medium have glue dots, and the heavy has an all over glue. It probably won't show up in the camera here, but it's an all over glue for really good adhesion. The light woven, we use that mostly on lighter fabrics. So you do want to match the weight of your interfacing to the weight of the fabric that you're putting it on, unless your instructions in your project ask for a heavier weight. So this is suitable for light cottons, poplin, quilting cotton, and fabrics like that. And we also use it to take the stretch out of things like knit or even our faux leather. Okay, so I've just fused these to the back of a piece of fabric. It's a light cotton duck upholstery weight type fabric, and I just want to show you that the light woven doesn't add much stiffness to this at all, but it would add strength for things like pockets and places where you would attach buttons. The medium adds some stiffness. You can see the difference between that one and this one, and it adds strength, but it's still really nice and thin, whereas the heavy one adds just about the same stiffness as the medium, maybe a little bit more, but you can see with the grain it is just slightly thicker. Now, these are still really easy to sew. If you're concerned about your sewing machine at all being able to sew through multiple thicknesses, you would just leave these out of the seam allowance and cut your interfacing slightly smaller than your template piece. Now, I'm just going to show you how easy it is to fuse these to fabric. We'll start with the lightweight one. I've already fused it to a couple of my pieces here. This one is quilting cotton, and I just want to show you how when I fused this, the edges of the interfacing shrunk a little bit from the top and bottom. So when we're fusing, it's a really good idea to pre-shrink the interfacing. And there are a couple of ways to do that. You can soak it in some water and then let it air dry. But I also like to just spritz it with water while I'm interfacing. So what I like to do is put my fabric wrong side up and center the interfacing with the glue dot side down onto the back of the fabric. So I've cut this one exactly the same size as the fabric piece, so you can see how it might shrink in. Normally, I might actually cut my interfacing slightly smaller than the fabric piece so that when I sew the bag, the interfacing is not in the seams. So what I like to do to pre-shrink it is give it a good spritz of water, and you can actually see the interfacing pull in a little bit at the edges, and this is because the weave on this is a little bit coarse, so when you spritz it with water, it shrinks up and pulls together a little bit. And then I find if I go ahead and take my iron and just give it a little steam over it, it's going to pull in a little bit more without yet fusing it down. So you can see here how it's actually pulled in on the edges. And now I'm ready to press this in place. So I have my iron on the cotton setting, the hottest setting, because this is quilting cotton, and for it to fuse well with this glue, you have it on the cotton or cotton linen setting. You can fuse this to lighter or fancier fabrics, and to do that, you would use a pressing cloth, and also you would set the temperature to match the type of fabric you're fusing it to. So you don't want to damage your fabric. So use a pressing cloth, and actually make sure you do some samples just like this. So what I do is I hold it in one spot, you probably noticed, for about 5 to 10 seconds, and then move over to the next spot. Overlapping like this will make sure that any steam holes or bubbles on the bottom of my iron are completely overlapped. And then I flip it over and give it a quick press from the back, And it's really important to let this cool now before I use it. If you flip it back over, you will see how much is pulled in actually at the sides. So that's why pre-shrinking for especially the light one is very important. I find that the medium and heavy don't shrink as much. I'm just going to show you a few places where I've used this interfacing. I have a lot of people ask us if it's okay to fuse interfacing on our faux leather, and you totally can if you want to. It's not always necessary for some projects, but if your pattern or project calls for it, you certainly can. And what we do is use the same exact method as we used on the cotton, probably less water and steam. The main thing is to never ever iron the front side or it will melt the faux leather and you'll have an awful mark on there. So you can fuse it, and one of the reasons why I do fuse it on here is to take out a little bit of stretch. Vinyl often has a slight one-way stretch, so if you put the interfacing over top of it with the stretch going the opposite direction, you can remove that stretch. So I've used the lightweight on the Mora faux leather, and it doesn't actually add too much thickness to it, but it does add strength. So therefore it's still easy to sew in your projects because you'll keep it out of the seam allowances, cut it just slightly smaller so that it doesn't actually create thick seams. Now I'm just going to move on to the medium. The medium I've used on this quilting cotton as well, so it's going to make it very nice and stiff, but it's still quite thin and easy to work with. And you can fold this and make credit card slots very easily. It makes really nice stiff credit card slots like that. It holds a press really well. I'll just show you with I always used a burst of steam on my quilting cottons when I'm ironing them as well. When you're adding interfacing like this to your quilting cotton, you probably want to go up a needle size and switch to a denim or jeans needle. It'll just help puncture it that much better. I don't find with my machine anyway that a universal needle works very well when you start adding several layers of interfacing. So another thing we like to interface is our Harris tweed woven fabrics. If you just cut these, they will fray quite heavily along the edge and you start losing part of your weave. So what I do is I actually take interfacing and I fuse my whole half yard of Harris tweed. And then what I can do after that is take my pattern piece or my template cutter on top and then cut out my pieces. And if I do that, then I have a nice sharp cut there that is being held together by the interfacing, and I get a lot less fraying that way. Also, it adds a really nice stiffness. I've used a medium on here, and that feels like it'd be really nice on the outside of a bag to me. I also want to show you a little bit about our heavy interfacing. The heavy interfacing is a lot like Decauville Light. Now, this is Decauville Light. It's a non-woven fusible interfacing or stabilizer that we use in a lot of our bag projects. And heavy is a little bit similar to this, but as you can see, not quite as stiff. It's not quite as thick either, but really the main difference is the price point on this. The heavy interfacing is a lot more affordable than the Decauville Light. I probably would still go through the Decauville Light for something that required a little bit more stiffness, but this is really nice to make sure that we have this alternative. So I'm just going to show you, I've got a piece of Mora faux leather here in our charcoal, and I've added both Decauville Light and heavy to the back of it. Now there isn't a whole lot of difference between the thickness or pliability here. This woven is slightly thinner. When you squish it together, it pops back out quite nicely and doesn't really hold a wrinkle any more than the Decauville Light. So this is something that I would consider to stiffen up a bag exterior if you're sewing bags, if it does call for Decauville Light. And so that's it in a nutshell. We have the 3 weights. So this product, EB-FUSE, is exclusive to Emmaline bags. You can find a link to the products below in the description. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this, be sure to subscribe so you can see more videos.